made it no secret that I just thought it was in poor taste for you to continue with the pre-Grammy party when Whitney's body was still upstairs in the hotel room. Remember, Whitney passed away the same day as Clive, your annual party. But do you feel as though there was more that you could have done, like cut off her money supply or something?
You know, you always go through that in depth analysis.
Every year and the tragic day that she died, that there were many. Why did you let the party go on?
Of course, this is a personal thing. But the Grammys were the next night. You don't cancel. You turn an evening into a tribute.
You did a magnificent evening.
Into.
Did you give a thought to canceling?
Never.
You never thought?
Never.
Did you ever think?
And the family did not want me to give a thought.
My dad. I'll see you later. I'll see you later.
I was so terrorized by him. Whether he meant to do it or not, I'll never know. But he sure taught me that if you try to terrorize me again, well, we can't say that on public radio. What I may do to someone who tries to hurt me again in this business, I'm not having it. I should be respected as I respect, and I will not have someone try to ruin my spirit and ruin my career.
With Clive Davis out of the picture, Wendy Williams is finally speaking out for the first time since her guardianship began. She is now claiming that he allegedly orchestrated moves behind the scenes to force her into a facility. Reportedly, he took this step after discovering what Wendy actually knows regarding his alleged involvement in Whitney Houston's passing. In reality, she seemingly tried to warn the public about this when she openly confronted him on her talk show while he was sitting right across from her. Now, naturally, he didn't lose his temper on camera, but according to Wendy's side of the story, he took it personally and has been ruthlessly attempting to ruin her life ever since. If you already felt that her entire conservatorship situation was incredibly suspicious, well, it appears you might have been absolutely right the whole time. As most of you know, Wendy was considered a major threat to powerful industry executives back in the day, ranging from Oprah and Diddy all the way to Clive Davis. Because of this, it wasn't exactly shocking when she suddenly lost her show, fell ill out of nowhere, and was forced into a guardianship that she arguably never needed. Looking back to when Whitney was still alive and battling her ongoing substance issues, Wendy was actually one of the few media figures who criticized her harshly. While it initially seemed like she was just trash-talking the singer, insiders are now suggesting a different motive. They claim the real reason Wendy was so tough on Whitney was because she secretly knew there was a plot to eliminate her, granting certain people full control over her estate. And the easiest way to cover their tracks was to blame her passing entirely on her addiction struggles. One of the key moments when he allegedly tried to warn Whitney about Clive's ultimate plan was back in 2003, during their infamous and explosive radio interview. Whitney became extremely defensive during that broadcast, largely because she believed Wendy was intentionally bringing up her substance issues just to humiliate her. But looking at it now, it seems Wendy might have genuinely been trying to save her life. No shade intended. Just listen to this clip. Y'all.
You don't know what the allowance. You don't make me curse on the radio. I'm trying to be, come on.
Well, Steve was saying it was from about like $1,600 a week to about $500 a week.
Thank you to kiss my...
Okay. He
and
also...
so can anybody else ever think I'd do that to my mother, you low down, dirty...
You're very defensive, Whitney.
I have to be, Wendy. You talk about me every day.
Well, Whitney...
Every other day.
Whitney, you keep yourself in the headlines.
No, Wendy. Y'all keep me in the headlines. I mind my business. I try to maintain what I got. I want to know what I'm doing all the time. I don't give a shit about what you're doing all the time. As long as you're healthy and God is blessing you and you're doing the right thing and being a decent person, I can...
Now, Wendy had been established in the industry for years at that stage and had reported on multiple celebrities passing away exactly the way Whitney did. So, she wasn't just speaking for the sake of it. She understood exactly what she was discussing. In fact, Wendy herself had also struggled with substance dependency at one point in her life, much like Whitney had. But she gathered herself the moment she realized that individuals in the entertainment business were frequently eliminated once they began angering the wrong people, and their dependency was typically used to cover it up.
Oh, have you ever used drugs?
No.
Well, I have. It's been many years. I can laugh about it now, too. It's the stupidest thing I ever did in my life, you know. But I am familiar with every form of, and including crack and that whole bit. And I have to tell you that when I saw this picture right here, show that other picture of Whitney. I remember that girl, sweaty, hair in the face, grown. I remember that girl very well. I wrote the book and everything. And I can own up to my mistakes. Whitney, you need more than outpatient.
Yes. She does. I agree. I agree.
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you this right now because I said it before. I don't believe you were sober on Oprah. Yep. I don't believe that you went into rehab voluntarily this time. What I do believe is that Whitney, because I was watching Inside Edition yesterday. No, walk with me on this one. Mm-hmm. Okay? On Inside Edition, they said that Whitney just signed on for Waiting to Exhale 2. Well, you know what happens with these Hollywood people? You have to be insurable.
That's right.
You know, you have to be insurable and bankable. And nobody's insuring this.
Right.
So clean it up.
That's right. Exactly.
But the situation didn't end there. You see, even after Whitney's passing, Clive engaged in some questionable behavior that essentially confirmed to everyone what his true intentions were. And guess who was among the initial figures to hold him accountable, while everyone else was terrified because they didn't want him destroying their careers? Wendy. So, as a majority of you are aware, Whitney passed away on February 11th, 2012, in room 434 at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills. And that very same evening, Clive was holding his annual pre-Grammy gala right there in the building. She was registered in the suite under her grandmother's alias, Elizabeth Collins. Based on statements from Whitney's assistant, Mary Jones, Whitney was drawing a bath while Mary ran an errand to Neiman Marcus, departing the room around 3 p.m. When she came back at approximately 3:35 p.m., she discovered Whitney face down in the bathtub, submerged in roughly a foot of water. The official report stated, and I quote, Whitney's assistant, Mary Jones, found her face down in a water-filled bath with 2 superficial abrasions to the left side of her forehead. She was also found with a red fluid purge coming from her nose, and with a superficial abrasion to the left side of the bridge of her nose. Whitney's veteran bodyguard, Ray Watson, who had been positioned in the corridor, stormed in seconds later and pulled her out. He attempted to resuscitate her, but it was unfortunately too late. Hotel security contacted 911 at 3:43 p.m., bringing paramedics who were already on the premises due to Clive's event. CPR was administered at the location, but she was officially pronounced deceased. However, as I mentioned, our beloved star was tragically already gone by that moment.
When they did her autopsy, they said there was nothing wrong with her throat. Her lungs were so damaged that she couldn't fuel the notes. It was her lungs. It wasn't. Her voice was fine.
Oh.
That's how Clive did it. And then the next thing you know, she's Ray J. And then it's Grammy
happened.
time.
That happened.
And her and Clive had a fight 2 days before. And from what I was told, Bobbi Kristina was present for some of that fight. And then the next thing you know, she's dead. Ray J was the last person to see her alive. He let the drug dealer in, but she was sober, right? But he let the drug dealer in that gave her the shot.
But here is where the narrative shifts from tragic to absolutely sinister. So, while first responders were upstairs attempting to resuscitate Whitney, and people were weeping while trying to understand exactly how she passed, Clive, who was fully informed about the tragedy upstairs, still continued hosting his pre-Grammy celebration exactly as scheduled. He acted as if the woman whose career he had so profoundly shaped didn't have her deceased body resting right there in the building. As you can imagine, a vast majority of folks were furious about this, Wendy included. She literally brought Clive onto her broadcast and confronted him directly for proceeding with the festivities. Now, it is one matter to criticize a figure as influential as Clive, but to confront him face to face, especially after producers likely warned you behind the scenes not to pressure him on television, is incredibly courageous. But guess what Clive's justification was? This executive sat there and claimed he had already gathered a multitude of A-list celebrities and members of the royal family, and insisted he could not call off the event merely because Whitney had passed away. He was evidently far more worried about the high-profile attendees he managed to secure, rather than the tragic reality that Whitney had literally just lost her life. And recall what I previously mentioned about Wendy wanting Whitney to receive treatment, so her dependencies wouldn't be weaponized to conceal her demise? Well, she also fearlessly interrogated Clive regarding this, demanding to know why he didn't intervene more to secure professional help for Whitney. Instead, he simply observed her battle her demons entirely alone for years.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Do you think that there is more? And I come from a place of addiction, so personally speaking, I think that only the addict can clean up. But do you feel as though there was more that you could have done, like cut off her money supply or something?
You know, you always go through that in-depth analysis. Yeah. I met with her in my home. I had spent a weekend when Bobbi was in jail.
Did you like Bobbi?
I never had much to do with Bobbi. I don't think Bobbi was the cause of her problems. Right. I think they had a...
Wendy didn't merely criticize Clive regarding the party. She additionally proceeded to present some unsettling allegations, suggesting that Clive purportedly collaborated with hired enforcers to terminate Whitney's life over a $1.5 million debt. She was rumored to owe this massive sum to a narcotics syndicate on the East Coast. Now, this entire theory actually originated with private investigator Paul Huebl. And trust me, he was not merely some anonymous person on the internet spreading rumors. He was a veteran police officer who had successfully investigated prominent celebrity cases. And based on his findings, Whitney Houston did not simply drown by accident in that hotel tub. Paul asserted Whitney was allegedly murdered over a massive unsettled debt she reportedly owed to East Coast distributors. According to his records, these individuals had been aggressively harassing her for several weeks prior to her passing. And the afternoon before her death, she supposedly received a new package right there at the Beverly Hilton. Based on his careful examination, two suspicious-looking individuals were captured on the hotel security cameras, camouflaging themselves within Whitney's crew and heading toward her suite during a narrow time frame when she was isolated. Paul theorizes that when Whitney either could not provide the funds or declined to pay, the confrontation allegedly turned violent. He further stated Whitney possessed bruises on her skin that resembled offensive injuries. But according to him, the medical examiner's report failed to highlight those details properly. He is convinced that whoever attacked Whitney forcefully submerged her beneath the water until she ceased struggling, and subsequently manipulated the entire scene to appear like a standard relapse. And the most disturbing detail is, Whitney's only daughter also passed away in a frighteningly identical manner to Whitney, causing the public to suspect that Clive allegedly orchestrated her death as well, potentially to fulfill whatever rumored ritual he initiated when he supposedly eliminated Whitney. You see, on January 31st, 2015, nearly 3 years following Whitney's demise, Bobbi Kristina was discovered face down and completely unresponsive inside a bathtub at the Georgia residence she occupied with her boyfriend, Nick Gordon. Nick and an acquaintance located her, dialed 911, and initiated chest compressions before the medical team showed up. However, she tragically never woke up, remaining in a medically induced coma for almost 6 months, before officially passing away on July 26, 2015, at merely 22 years of age. Her medical examination concluded the primary cause of passing was lobar pneumonia, which developed from her face being submerged beneath water while heavily intoxicated, combined with severe hypoxic brain injury due to a lack of oxygen. But in stark contrast to her mother's passing, her case was not classified as a straightforward accident. The coroner categorized the method of death as undetermined, completely unable to confirm whether the chemical intoxication and underwater submersion were accidental or a deliberate act. Her legal estate subsequently launched a wrongful death lawsuit, claiming Nick provided her with a lethal mixture that knocked her out and afterward positioned her face down in freezing water, triggering the neurological damage that eventually ended her life. Nick, predictably, rejected all accusations of foul play. No criminal charges were ever officially brought against him, and he eventually passed away from a fatal overdose in 2020, long before the civil lawsuit achieved any legal conclusion. And listen to this shocking revelation. It was subsequently disclosed in Whitney's Lifetime Network documentary that Whitney had actually rescued Bobbi Kristina from a previous near-drowning incident in a tub just one evening before Whitney's personal tragedy. And Whitney allegedly warned her close circle shortly after to completely avoid the water, stating, "The water is evil." It seems Whitney recognized that Clive was purportedly plotting to eliminate both her and Bobbi utilizing water, and subsequently exploit their addiction histories to mask the crimes. Tragically, those warnings were not enough, because both women ultimately lost their lives under the exact same horrific circumstances. Furthermore, according to Whitney's former husband, Bobby Brown, he strongly suspects that the deaths of both Whitney and Bobbi Kristina were carefully orchestrated by a powerful executive within the industry for deeply alleged ritualistic purposes.
Situations with my ex-wife and with my daughter, and they both died the same way.
Oh, so wow. you think that he killed Whitney as well?
I believe so.
So that was from...
As I mentioned earlier, all of this information is strictly alleged. However, if any of what Wendy is claiming turns out to be true, then Whitney's case definitely needs to be reopened and investigated once again. In the meantime, the public share their opinions, much like this person who stated, "Wendy, she said what we all thought, and we weren't in the minority. That pre-Grammy party going on with her body in the building was more than bad taste. And how did they plan tributes, much given it was the day of her death, too?" Another individual added, "I'm glad when he stood up to Clive. But now, I want to hear your perspective. What are your thoughts on Wendy speaking out regarding the rumored ritual that took place at Clive's gala the night Whitney passed away? And do you truly believe it is time to reopen Whitney's investigation? Share your opinions with me in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to click right here to check out this other dramatic video.